And we're back.
And if you're joining us right now, we are just getting our second conversation for the morning started. And as we mentioned in the beginning of our show, we are joined by representatives from the Belize network of NGOs, and we are getting an update from the work that they've been doing, and also on some of their perspective on some national issues. And joining us in our studio this morning, we have Janelle Trinona, who is a senator on behalf of the NGO community, as well as Valdemar Andrade, who is the executive director of TASA. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Belize. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. There, of course, there's a lot that we could discuss, perhaps we can start by talking about the release that was recently issued by the BNN, talking about some of the topical issues which the nation is facing, and perhaps getting your position on some of these issues. So Senator Trinona, perhaps we can start there.
Well, I think on behalf of the entire community, we do want to extend our condolences to the Ramnares family. They are dealing with more than we can imagine. And we also want to extend our condolences on behalf of the community to John's co-workers at TASA, his former co-workers at WCS, and really everyone who knew him. It's really fair to say that everyone that knew John liked something about him and loved a lot about him and respected everything about him, because he was certainly never shy about asserting himself and making sure that you knew where he stood. And I think that is always to be respected. And I think, we don't know him certainly independently, but certainly John's brother, Mikey, can't be forgotten in all of this either. And we really, David Mike, that's his, Mikey's his nickname, but it's really that we lost two good Belmopanese. And we continue to pray for their wives, for Vivian, who is still fighting, and Yemi. And it's really that, the community, I think as a microcosm of the entire country, is still reeling from this. I know these tragedies have a way of being replaced by the next tragedy. And I think the commitment from our sector is certainly that, as we, as a community, continue to lose members of the NGO and conservation sector, it's really critical that we reiterate our commitment to playing a role in what happens next, and making sure that we honor their legacies moving forward, so that they do not die as just another statistic, but really that they continue to be the catalysts that they were in life. So it's really important for us to underscore that.
I want to get into John's work. If we're going to talk about him, we want to talk about his work at TASA.
Sure.
And I know he was part of the Fish Right, Eat Right project movement, but what are some other areas that we can discuss that he was a part of at TASA?
Sure. First, again, I offer my condolences to the family on behalf of TASA and the conservation community. Actually, I was friends with Vivian before John. And so, because again, as a co-manager with the Fisheries Department, we work with Vivian on development projects and different things. We offer our condolences to her and the entire Ramnares family. We, also wish her a speedy recovery, as we get through this. The sense of loss is tremendous, because, this is, I've been working with John since 2016 on the spatial monitoring and reporting tool, SMART, which he trained probably everybody in this country, and also trained across the region. I don't know if many people know, because John's background was actually IT. He wasn't a conservationist, in training. But over the years, he applied that to the conservation effort. The way this works is that basically we do planning. We create partnerships, because this is funded by many people, and that's how we have a partnership with Oceana and the entire Belize network of NGOs, because it doesn't only straddle conservation efforts, it also straddles other social sectors as well. And then through the partnerships, we do the protection work. So John was involved in the planning and rolling out deployment of technology within the space. And the technology doesn't only affect enforcement and surveillance, but it also affects science and how we gather data, because actually it is the science that informs us what we need to do. Again, you know, this is always been my line. We are a natural resource-based economy. And to do this, we have to be able to build capacity, technology to be able to do this, because again, you know, while we have, for example, in Turn F-16 officers that do in-water protection and surveillance every day, 25 days for the year, the fuel is expensive, so we have to find a way to bridge the gap. We have to find a way to do this work. And so John brought a lot of that knowledge and know-how and experience to how to apply some of these. In fact, we had just come back from Guatemala, where we attended a Protected Areas Summit, right, funded by Global Conservation, Rainforest Trust, you know, and so we had just negotiated some key technology. In fact, we are still bringing a $25,000 drone that would have been able to enforce, along with our radar system and our drone system, to be able to do the work that we do. Again, it is all in line because our natural resource-based economy. So that's a lot of the work that he was involved in. But on the sustainability side too, he was also helping our tourism and financial sustainability program, because the last portion of the planning, partnerships, protection is the sustainability. So he was building models and dashboards so that we were able to tell, okay, how far could we take, you know, introducing our conservation work into the tourism model so that we can pay for the work that we are doing. So it's an interesting, you know, dichotomy of different things that come together when you have somebody that always says, no, I have a solution for that, but you really have to know what you need, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so that was always his attitude, very positive, you know, that he brought to all of this. And so, but there are so many things that he brought to the table.
Needless to say, it's a big loss for your community. Why the need for this press release, Senator? Why is the BNN deciding to take this mantle up?
I think it's something that even if you didn't know this family, to realize that in 41 seconds, 2 people were lost, 2 others fighting for their lives, and an innocent forever traumatized. If that does not move you to the core as a Belizean, I don't know what will. And I think I want to take this moment to just ask if you still have that surveillance video anywhere on your social media, to please, for respect for the family, please remove it. I don't think any one of us would want our loved ones' final moments as some form of entertainment or some fascination. I'm a true crime fan, but that's not what it is. And I think for BNN, so many of the members have reached out to just say, I am, like, this guts me. Like, you know, I feel this to my core, and, you know, I have so many questions, and I want to help, and I want to do something, and I don't know where to put this out. And like I said, I think there's been cases like this before, and it's like, well, what does it take? And which one do we move on? And it's, you know, if this is the moment that forces us to say basta, then so be it. And I think, you know, following Celsius passing last year, you know, again, in some sort of inexplicable or, you know, very hard to understand circumstances, it's just that the community is like, you know, we will support, we will maintain, you know, all sorts of unity, but if we have to lead on this, then we will lead where we have to. And I think for every Belizean who, you know, believes I should be safe in my home, I should be able to walk on the street, I should be able to go to work and not feel, you know, traumatized that somebody's going to go postal and come in and there's an active shooter. I mean, we've kind of let ourselves believe that's normal elsewhere, but it's not normal here, and we're safe here, and we can do different things here. I think this is one more example, if we needed it, that Belize is changing. And I think for all of us as Belizeans to embrace our role in making sure that it changes to what we want it to change, as opposed to watching it change and then, kind of sealing ourselves in some sort of bubble. Because we're small. Everybody knows everybody. And that's a weakness to some degree, because everybody knows where everybody lives. Everybody knows how to get to everybody. Everybody knows when they're, when they're sensitive, when they're vulnerable. But because everybody knows everybody, then that can also be our strength. Our greatest weakness should also be our greatest strength, in that we can figure this out and we can break an unfortunate cycle, but it can't be that every year we just wait for the next one. I remember as a journalist covering the case of the Esquivel sisters here in Belize City, who were murdered in their home by a scissor. He had a pair of scissors that he used. And I just remember feeling like they were in their home. These were two women working, trying to do what they needed to do, and they weren't even safe in their home. And I think as women particularly, like, we felt that for a while, but it's everybody. And it's that there's no conscience in terms of who gets left behind to deal with everything. And I think for a Belizean, for any Belizean, that's real. And I think, as I said, we need to make sure that we all, individually and collectively, play our role in making sure that, yes, Belize is changing, it can't always stay the same, but we have a say and we have a right to determine what happens next. And it doesn't have to be more loss. It can be that we move from strength to strength.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add that, we, from the conservation community, we come from a protection point of view in terms of how do we protect the rights of everybody to share in the natural resources that you have. Mm-hmm. We also always speak in Belize about people feeling entitled. We are entitled to protection. We are entitled to, having that sense of safety, of space. And also, because a big part of our revenues comes from tourism, one of the biggest components of tourism is security. And so the security that you offer your own citizens is what you should be offering to the visitor as well. And so, this is something that we have to be conscious that, in providing ourselves with that level of security that we are entitled to, we should also we will also provide for our future, our economic and ecosystem resilience.
I mean, in light of your statement of our visitors, we also had the horrible case of Shakira, and I understand that these are tragedies that have happened within our homes, within our communities. Belizeans have a culture of nothing will happen after this. It's a tragedy, but nothing's going to come out of this. We move on to the next. So how do we address that kind of culture? How do we begin to make movements against that kind of thinking?
Well, as Val is calling out, I mean, it's really to see ourselves in these incidents. These are not isolated incidents that are not going to have repercussions. Mm-hmm. And if it's going to mean that we get a lower tier ranking, or we lose tourism, or it has economic consequences, then we should all be aware, because again, we've just talked about how small we are. Everything has a ripple out effect. Mm-hmm. So it's really important for us to see ourselves as a part of these stories, not just as potential, that could have been us, or that could have been somebody I'm related to or that I love, but it's really that this affects me as a Belizean, because again, I totally understand it's a defensive mechanism to kind of compartmentalize, and that's happening out there, or that's happening to somebody else, and I'm very sorry that Jabria died, etc. But no, it's really that, as Val is calling out, that we're a nature-based economy. This is about how all of us make a living. This is how all of us make ends meet, and how do we make sure that we protect that together. And the truth is, there are bad actors who don't care. They want to go after the resources, no matter the season, no matter the size, no matter anything, the rules. And there are bad actors who will, pick up a machine gun and spray bullets into a crowd. I mean, that is the reality of it. But those are the one-offs. And yes, we have to call a spade a spade. It's, there are bad actors within the people who are supposed to be helping to protect us. That does not mean everybody that's responsible for protection is good or doing the right thing, but it's that we have to weed out those bad actors so that we can boost public confidence in the system that's supposed to protect us. And when we don't see that we play a role in making sure that's strengthened, because I don't know that any of us can wait for somebody else to fix this.
I think, it's one of the biggest things that we lose in all of this is our sense of freedom, right? Our freedom to move out, come out of our house, our freedom to get in our yard, our freedom to be on the street. It gives me an opportunity to thank our team at TASA and all the protected areas and all the security officers that are doing the right thing, for everybody to recognize what is it that they go through and what is it that they do for this country, and so people have to understand that, I was just talking to Ms. Celia from Tide, that we have to really raise the bar on, one of the first things when I came and I took this job, when the chairman reached out to me, I said, well, the first thing is, you have to commit to me that the guys will get insurance, life, and medical insurance. We also have liability insurance, because it's not only these type of security, there are other types of security. Once you get in a boat, it's a liability, yes. It's an issue at the end of the day. So, we have to understand that, for us as citizens, we have the right to have that freedom. We have the right to have that sense of security. We have to involve ourselves. It can't only be a snapshot in time when these things happen that we get out there and do things. It has to be continuous. Governance is about us. We have to govern at the end of the day. That is why we do what we do as a conservation community, because the resources that we protect is not for TASA. This is for all Belizeans at the end of the day. And so if we take the same sense into security, that is primordial to everybody, and when you have a child, that makes it even more, heightened in terms of your sense of security, because right now I just want to be right there with all my children to make sure that they're okay. There are certain rules, I always watch the videos, but now I'm giving those same rules to my kids and say, if this happens, call me and have me on the phone. Right. Because it is important that we understand how serious this issue is and that we cannot let it go.
And going back to something that Senator, you said, just talking about the changes that are necessary in order to benefit our whole society. I would imagine that within the network of NGOs, there's a lot of knowledge and resources that can be pooled together to perhaps accomplish some of these, or even just bring suggestions to the table. Are those discussions happening, and can we expect, perhaps more, conversations or projects and actions along these lines?
Well, I think definitely the sort of the resources to bear, the expertise, the experience is ongoing, and as I said, however we can support on other initiatives, ongoing initiatives, but certainly wherever we can lead, we will lead, because I think that's also trying to channel all the emotions and all the, for lack of a better, the worry and the fear of, how do we take those and turn them into something positive, and doing something, I think, can be helpful to that, and making sure that people have an outlet and are making a difference. So, we have a series of things already coming up. We have Reef Week coming up in a few weeks, and one of the conversations already is to how do we help through fundraisers dedicated for certain causes, and one of them was the children who are left behind, who outside of everything else may need assistance with schooling when they reach school age, and how do we support the families recover beyond the insurance, beyond everything else? How do we galvanize together so that they're buoyed somewhat? We can't replace, but how can we help to reinforce that it does take a village, and it's really important for us to make sure that we identify what we can bring to the table, that we help to identify gaps and meet those gaps when we can. I think Val hit on something key in terms of this community has always been collaborative and cooperation, and because we know limited resources, we know the value of pooling those resources, and I think this is certainly one of those all hands on deck moments and making sure that, as you said, we make sure that the ship is running and running in the right direction, and we're not headed to any reefs.
So as a part of the network, as I said, partnerships are a great part of the network. So beyond the local network that we have, we also have international networks that have been, the phone has been messaging, and the phones have been ringing off the hook on how they can assist, right? But it is about how do we set up, the system to ensure that there's the level of protection to begin with, that there's a level of security. In our cases, we use a lot of digital technology to track our officers and to ensure that they are secure. We're trying to implement the vessel monitoring system for the fishers as well, because, we have to try to offer a sense of security to as many people as possible. And so we're using those level of technologies to do that. So those are some of the solutions that we are bringing to the table, and they have helped to solve some of the serious crimes in this country, right? And so we will continue to do that as a network, to leverage whatever we can, and it's not only financial resources, but also technical resources that we can bring to bear as a small country, to be able to solve this. But yeah, I foresee ourselves, and I know when the senator reached out, this is what I was thinking. How is it that we can leverage whatever we can? And there are incredible, now that there is incredible technology that you can use to be able to do certain things. And Belize, fortunately, has a good infrastructure to be able to do some of this.
In light of the press release, and I just want to read a portion of it, it says at the end, we therefore stand ready to support and lead, if necessary, efforts to identify the immediate short and medium-term steps that need to be adopted to ensure the safety of citizens on the street, at the workplace, and in our homes. In light of this press release, I would imagine that the public is looking to you now to start a movement. And
so if I may interject, we are already starting a movement. Okay. We are on the ground. This is what, and Janelle can tell you again, a big pet peeve of mine is that enforcement is key to everything, because the enforcement is not only about enforcing fisheries rules and regulation. It offers a sense of safety to the fisher, to the visitors, to the tourism stakeholders, to the citizenry that live in any one of these protected areas, that live around the protected areas. Our presence alone, this is just from the conservation community, but there are other NGOs that are doing a lot. Yeah. So it's not about starting a movement. The movement is there. It's about how do we target it to ensure that we are solving a part of this problem that we have in terms of the security. Yeah.
If I am somebody that is watching right now, and I would like to support BNN in your efforts, particularly for this, through this press release, how can we be a part of this?
Please get in touch with us. Our contact details are on the release. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. But one of the things I want to call out to reinforce what Val says, that over and beyond the conservation community, I think what's really been incredible is I'm 45 years old this year, and I know I carry some of the residual mentality of, you be polite and you not that respect isn't important, but there are certain things that we were taught, that so-and-so is in a uniform. So, no matter what, you do what so-and-so says. And I think it's, for me and our generation, perhaps when you push back against authority, it takes a certain personality, or not even pushback, but you question. Yeah. And how do we do that? And I want to give credit to the Belizean youth right now that's helping to erode that in a positive way, because it is that we have a right to question, and we have a right to get answers, and we have a right to participate. And it takes me back to the children's story of the emperor and his fancy new clothes, and nobody wanted to tell him that he wasn't wearing any clothes, and it took that young person in the crowd. And that's where I feel like we are at this moment, that the young Belizeans are calling out and showing the adults, hey, there are things happening, and we need you to see what we're seeing, and we want to play a role in governance, and we want to make sure that our future is what we need it to be. And I think that's a really important dynamic to all of this that's happening, because as we call it in the release, citizen security underpins everything. You can't work peace of mind if you're worried about where your kids are and are they safe at school. You can't feel safe walking down the street, even if it's just to your car. If you're looking around trying to think who's going to jump me, who's going to take my car, who's going to take me, you know, that's a reality in so many countries. It does not have to be the reality in Belize, but it is everybody coming together, figuring out how do we break this cycle? How do we get out of our heads? How do we not say, you know what, I'm going to lock up and you know, it's always been a thing for me to be told, oh, Belize, you know, we funny, we have the bad actors walking around the street and all the good people are locked up in burglar barred homes and big dogs and fancy security cameras and, you know, motion detector lights, you know, like how do we flip the script on that? And I think that's really, it's all of us. So to answer your question, it's that we figure out together how we create what type of Belize, like Val said in the beginning, what's the plan? How do we make sure this is what we want? And then we figure out how we get there together, because together is the only way we can move forward. If one of us is trying to be the spanner in the works, then the whole contraption falls down, but the machinery can work. We've seen what happens when we work together and we pull and we figure out a problem. And even though this seems big and Belize feels so small, as I said, the strength is the weakness, and that we can put together our resources, our expertise, and figure out how to cut off what needs to cut off and fertilize what needs to fertilize and manifest the Belize that we need. And that's really, as I said, it moves for everybody else, but at the end of the day, it's everybody on deck, everybody helping out, everybody bringing something to the table.
Now that this press release is out, what happens next?
So what happens here? The conversation has started again, and I do lament that it's at the top of the year when we're supposed to be filled with hope going into the rest of the year. Yeah. But if this is it, I mean, I have to say, one of the things that stuck out to me was seeing John's social media page say, live every day like it's your last.
Wow.
And really making sure that every day counts. So maybe it is no coincidence that at the top of the year, at the beginning of the year, this is where we start, because we have to start it. Like I said, it can't be that we're waiting for somebody else to fix it. And if this is where it starts, then we go from here and we figure out how to continue the conversation, because like I said, sometimes these stories and these incidents kind of go on the back of the stove and then they fall off the stove and then get back of the stove. This can't happen, will not happen. We will make sure it doesn't happen.
So we can expect more of BNN.
So I just want to add that, you know, BNN, as you know, was born out of, you know, the citizenry being a part of the governance structure, and that's why the 13th Senator and how we, you know, it's one of the most transparent and accountable processes that we have in place today. You know, but we are a part of many boards, and so through those boards, the BNN members who will represent BNN on those boards will also integrate this aspect as a part of what we do in there. You know, we are a part on many key national boards. We integrate ourselves where we push sometimes to get on, and where we are allowed also to be on. And we have gone as far as the Senate, so we are able to take things up to the Senate and have a say as far as the Senate. So, you know, in terms of as I say, you know, I don't want people to lose their sense of, okay, it's what's next. No, it's what is continuing to happen, and BNN will make an effort to ensure that you are advised what we are doing every step of the way, because the resources that we raise is also on behalf of the government and people of Belize, and so we have an obligation and a duty to do this, and an obligation and a duty to report back to the citizenry what we're doing.
So we're going to be hearing more about this.
Please.
And one of our board representations is, of course, the newly commissioned People's Constitutional Commission. So citizen security and making sure that the NGO perspective is also going to be clear and present at that forum as well.
I think it also goes into how do we hold those in authority accountable. Because at the end of the day, it's not just a regular person that did this. This is somebody that we are supposed to trust with our lives. So, Senator and Mr. Andrade, I know that I said that wrong, but thank you both so much for coming in, and the conversation won't stop. we're going to continue. You have to hold us accountable too, as the media, to continue this conversation.
And you play one of the most critical roles in ensuring that the
Yes.
message is accurate and to the point.
Just keep messaging us, and we will. But thank you both so much. For
Thank you
being
very
here
much.
Thank you so much for having us.
And as we move on for our show, the final segment, Feel with Family
Yes.
show, we're going to have members from the NCFC to talk to us about the show and what is next in the season.